this video, I explain subtopic 2.4, which is about the isomer for alkane. So let's look at the step in drawing the isomer. So basically, to draw the isomer for alkane, if you recall, the functional group of alkane is a CC single bond. So we call it the single bond between carbon atom. So to draw the isomer for alkane, we will start by connecting the carbon atom in a straight chain. So here we have a straight chain, and then followed by a branch chain. So here we can put a branch here. Maybe we put it on the second carbon, or of course we can put it on the third carbon, and so many more. So for your information, the methane, ethane, and propane, they do not have isomer. So the isomerism in alkane will start from the butane. So this is the methane with 1 carbon atom, and this is ethane with 2 carbon atoms. This is propane with 3 carbon atoms. The isomerism of alkane starts from butane with 4 carbon atoms. So here, as you can see, this is butane, and another isomer is the isobutane, or in this case, we can call it as the 2-methylpropane. So in the butane structure formula, the longest carbon chain is this one, whereby we have 4 carbon atoms. So this is a straight chain. And since it has 4 carbon atoms, so we call it as the butane. So this is a straight chain. And then when we have a branch, we call it as a branch chain. So this is a branch chain, whereby we have a methyl group here. This is a methyl group on carbon number 2. So this is carbon number 1. This is carbon number 2. This is carbon number 3. So the longest carbon chain is 3 carbon. We call it as a propane. And then the methyl group is on carbon number 2. So we call it as 2-methylpropane. So whenever we assign the carbon numbering, we want to make sure the branch group have the smallest number. So we need to make sure this methyl group to get the smallest carbon number as possible. So another example will be this one, which is the isomer of pentane with 5 carbon. So first of all, we have the longest carbon chain is 5 here with 5 carbon atoms. We call it as the longest carbon chain is 5 carbon. So 5 carbon, we call it as the pentane, and this is a straight chain. And then next we can have a branch, and then when we have branch, we call it as the branch chain. So in this case, the longest carbon chain is 4, whereby we have 4 carbon. So we call it as the butane, and then this is the methyl group, which is a branch. So again, we want to assign the carbon numbering. We want to make sure the branch group to have the smallest number. So this methyl group, we want to make sure it to get the lowest carbon number as possible. So that's why we name for the left hand side. We number for the left hand side, whereby this is carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 4. So the methyl group will on the carbon number 2. That's why we call it as 2-methylputanes. And then we don't want to number from the right hand side, because when we number from the right hand side, this will be our first carbon, second carbon, third carbon, and then this is the fourth carbon. So in this case, if we number from the right hand side, the methyl group will be on the third carbon, on the carbon number 3. So we don't want this to happen. That's why we number it from the left hand side. And of course, we can have 2 methyl group on the same carbon. So in this case, we have 2 methyl group on the same carbon, which is this one. So in this case, the longest carbon chain is this one with 3 carbon atoms. So when we have 3 carbon atoms, we call it as the propane. And then we have 2 methyl group on the same carbon atom. So this is carbon 1, this is carbon 2, this is carbon 3. So both of the methyl group is on the carbon number 2. So we call it as 2, 2. We have 2 methyl groups, so we put a di here, dimethylpropane. So basically, the isomer for alkane, it can be summarized in the table below. So we have the first 5 alkane molecules, which are the methane with 1 carbon, and the ethane with 2 carbon, the propane with 3 carbon, and also butane with 4 carbon. And last but not least, we have pentane with 5 carbon. So like I mentioned just now, the isomerism of alkane will start from the butane, whereby the methane, ethane, and propane, they do not have isomer. That's why you can see they do not have isomer here. So basically, the structure formula of methane is this. This is for the ethane, and this is for the propane. So basically, for butane, it have a total of 2 isomers. We have 2 isomers. So for the first one, it's a straight chain. The longest carbon chain is 4, so we call it as the butane. And the second one is a branch chain, whereby we have methyl group on the carbon number 2, so we name it as 2-methylpropane. And last but not least, when we look at the pentane with 5 carbon atoms, it have a total of 3 isomers. So the first one is this. which is a straight chain with 5 carbon atoms, so we name this as pentane. And of course, we can have a branch chain whereby we have methyl group on carbon number 2. This is carbon 1, this is carbon 2, so we call it as 2-methyl pentane. And again, we can have the 2 methyl group on the same carbon, whereby we have the first methyl group and then the second methyl group on the same carbon. So this is our carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3. So both of the methyl groups are on the carbon number 2. And then the longest carbon chain is this one. We have 3 carbons, so we call it a propane. So in this case, we will name it as 2,2-dimethyl propane. So that's all for the isomer for alkane. Thank you.